In this video, we will look at multiplying a decimal by another decimal using an area model where we record the equations. The work that is shown in this video should come after students have had experience solving problems like this using base 10 pieces to create the array, and then also drawing an area model with the sections to represent the wholes and the tenths and hundredths. Then they could be ready to make the connection to this less concrete way of just recording the equations in the area model. Remember, the focus of this standard is to use models, drawings, and strategies based on place value to compute problems. So let's take a look at how we can solve 3 and 95 hundredths times 2 and 4 tenths using an area model. Remember, before we begin to solve, we'll estimate so that we can determine the reasonableness of our final answer. I know that 3 and 95 hundredths is close to 4. It's just 5 hundredths away. And 2 and 4 tenths is close to 2. It's just 4 tenths more than 2 wholes. And I know 4 times 2 is 8. So this would let me know that our actual answer will be around 8 wholes. So the first thing that we want to do is draw our area model. So we'll draw a rectangle for that here. And then we know that we need to decompose both of our factors so that we can multiply. So we're going to look at 3 and 95 hundredths first. It's important to note that we want to decompose 3 and 95 hundredths into its wholes, its tenths, and its hundredths. If we just decompose this into 3 wholes and then 95 hundredths, that would still make the multiplication pretty tricky. But decomposing it into its tenths and hundredths separately will allow us to use our friendly facts and number sense more fluently. So I'm going to decompose this into 3 plus 9 tenths plus 5 hundredths. Then what we'll do is decompose our 2 and 4 tenths into 2 plus 4 tenths. Okay. And now we would be ready to fill in the equations for our partial products. So here we would have 3 times 2, which is 6. Here we would have 9 tenths times 2. We know that if we had 9 tenths 2 times, that would be 18 tenths. And the 18 tenths is enough to make 1 whole and have 8 additional tenths. And then lastly here, we would have 5 hundredths times 2. And if we had 5 hundredths 2 times, that would be 10 hundredths. Then we'll come to the bottom row. Here we would have 3 times 4 tenths. I know that if I had 4 tenths 3 times, that would be 12 tenths, which is enough to make 1 whole and have 2 tenths left. Now in this section here, we would multiply 9 tenths times 4 tenths. Throughout our work with multiplying decimals, we found that when we multiply tenths times tenths, our product is in the hundredths. And so now I can just think, well, 9 times 4 is 36. And so this would be 36 hundredths. And then lastly here, we are going to have our 5 hundredths times 4 tenths. And again, through the work that we have been doing, we've recognized that when we multiply tenths times hundredths, our product is some number of thousandths. And we know 4 times 5 is 20. So this would be 20 thousandths. So now we have all of our partial products. Our job is now just to add those together. So we're going to add 6 plus 1 and 8 tenths plus 10 hundredths plus 1 and 2 tenths plus 36 hundredths plus 20 thousandths. So first here, I could do 6 plus 1 and 8 tenths. I know that would give us 7 and 8 tenths. So now if I take that 7 and 8 tenths and I add to that 10 hundredths, which I know is actually the same as 1 tenth, now we would have 7 and 9 tenths. Next, I can add the 1 and 2 tenths. So I'd have 7 and 9 tenths plus 1 whole and 2 tenths. I know our 9 tenths plus, if I just took 1 more tenth, that would move this up to 8 wholes. Then I have another whole, so I'd be up to 9 wholes, and the extra tenth, I would be at 9 1/10. Now I need to add the 36 hundredths, so I'll have 9 1/10 plus 36 hundredths. I can think about that 1/10 as 10 hundredths, and I know that 10 hundredths plus 36 hundredths would be 46 hundredths. So I would be at 9 46 hundredths. And then now lastly, I'll take this 9 46 hundredths, and I need to add to that the 20 thousandths, which I can actually just write as 2 hundredths. And I know that 9 46 hundredths plus 2 more hundredths would get me up to 9 48 hundredths. So that would show me that the product of 3 95 hundredths and 2 4 tenths is 9 48 hundredths. We had estimated that our answer would be around 8. I know 9 48 hundredths is pretty close to 8, and so that is a very reasonable answer. And so this is how we would multiply two decimal numbers using an area model where we record the equations in our area model.